Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Dr. Maszlee Malik, currently the chairman for International Institute for Advanced Islamic Studies, a think tank under the Prime Minister Department of Malaysia. And I was a former MP of Simparangam in Malaysia and also a former Minister of Education.
Can you provide an overview of the Muslim population that is in Malaysia and what kind of role they have in the Malaysian society?
Yeah, we have approximately 60% of Muslim population who are Muslims, Malaysian populations, Malaysian citizens who are Muslims, and most of the Muslims are from the Malay ethnic group. We also have Chinese Muslims. We also have sizable number of Indian Muslims and people from different ethnicities who are Muslim as well.
So with the non-Muslim population, so the 40%, how do the non-Muslim Malaysians perceive Islam? And what are the common misconceptions that they have about Islam?
It depends on the individuals and depends on the community they're living in, depends on the geographical background they're from, and it depends on the education background that they're coming from. Just like being mentioned by our brother Nizam just now, we have different streams of schoolings in Malaysia. We have a lot of misconceptions, not only about Islam, but about Muslim, but also misconceptions amongst Muslims about non-Muslims as well. I mean, the mutual misconceptions are everywhere. I don't think it's a specific thing in Malaysia, but it also happened throughout the globe. I mean, we keep talking about, people have a lot of misconceptions about Islam and Muslims, but Muslims also have misconception about others as well. So these mutual misconceptions need to be addressed and need to be overcome, but it must not be one-sided. But coming back to your question, you're asking about the misconceptions about Islam and Muslims in Malaysia. Mainly, the non-Muslim in Malaysia would having a thought that Islam is only confined for the Malays, simply because Malays are the majority population and they're Muslims. All Malays are Muslim, but not all Muslims are Malay, But maybe to some, they may have not encountered experience living with Malays or having Malay friends or having Muslim friends. They thought that Islam is only confined with Malays and nothing to do with, for example, if they are Chinese or they're Indians or they are Siamese or from whatever ethnicities in Malaysia. They thought that, Islam is maybe not for us, for others. That's among the misconception. But Alhamdulillah, nowadays, that been, I would say, relatively overcome, especially with the social media.
What unique challenges do Malaysian Muslims face in their daily lives?
I mean, for Muslims in Malaysia, the biggest challenge is to be a good example for others. I mean, that in Islam we always preach for good things. We always preach the ideals of Islam, that the prophets, the Quran always talk about the ideal society, the ideal personality, the ideal family, the ideal community. But when we come to practice, the reality is human are human being. There are good Muslims, there are bad Muslims. There are good non-Muslims, there are bad non-Muslims. But when the Muslim are the majority, so the news would pick up, sensational news always pick up bad things. That's a reality we have to admit. So whenever certain incidents or certain crimes or certain bad things are being committed by Muslims, some non-Muslim would say, look, it's committed by Muslims. Hey, look, he's a Muslim. That is what we are struggling to become the exemplar, to become, good guidance for the society. And this is where I think most of Muslim educators are trying to educate the children. I mean, not only are Muslims, but trying to give good example, not only to your family, not only to your friends, but to the whole community. Yeah.
So next I wanted to talk a bit more about the history of Malaysia and some modern perspectives. So can you discuss the historical relationship between Malaysia and the Muslim world?
Okay. Talking about Malaysia as a country, it was officially established in 1963. Before Malaysia, the name was Tanah Melayu. Yeah. And before Tanah Melayu, it was Malaya. Before 1957. In 1957, after the independence, we were known as Persekutuan Tanah Melayu, the Federation of Malay States. In 1963, we have Malaysia as a nation state. Before the Federation of Malay States, it was Malaya, and it was under British rule, British colonization. Yeah, and before it became Malaya, there was a series of invasions or colonization by different European power. For example, Dutch came before the British. Before the Dutch, it was the Portuguese. So the fall of Malay Muslim Empire, which was known as Malacca Empire then, was the year 1511. Something else happened at the eastern part of the world, the western part of the world, but 1511, that was the collapse of a Muslim empire in Malaysia and the beginning of European invasion of that archipelago. Then, during the Muslim empire, known as the Malacca Empire, it has good, strong relationship with Muslim powers then. A lot of historical documents, a lot of, historical accounts indicating that relation had been established between Malacca and the Arab powers, the Turks, the Ottomans, on the western part, and with other Muslim powers and countries from the subcontinent and also from the eastern part of Malaysia, which is Indonesia. During the colonial period, there was a good relation between Muslims in Malaysia and Muslims from the subcontinent, and Muslims from Yemen, and Muslims from the Hijaz. For the Muslim in Yemen, simply because they were the one that responsible in bringing Islam to Malaysia after Islam was established earlier by certain traders from China, from Gujarat, from other part of the world. So when those from Yemen came to Malaysia, they became the reference. They became especially the Sadats, or the descendants of the prophets. Yeah, the scholars of Yemen, they always became the reference of Muslims in Malaysia. While the relation between Muslims then in Malay archipelago under the British ruling with the Hijaz, it was because of Hajj. And also with Al-Azhar, for example, because we send a lot of students studying there. Not a lot, but there were a few sizable number of Malaysian, not Malaysian then, there was the Malay students who were going there to learn about Islam and to come back as scholars. While the relation between the Ottoman Empire then with the sultanates, some sultanates in Malaysia, especially the Johor Sultanate, the southern part of Malaysia, there's a state called Johor. It was an empire of its own. So it has a good relation with the Ottoman and with Queen Victoria then. So talking about the global relation between Muslims in what is known as Malaysia nowadays, or then known as Malaya or Malayland or Malay Archipelago, was established since centuries, and either through politics or through trades or through what was known then as the Hajj connections. Yeah. And Dawah, of course.